Hi AP. Okay, today we're going to talk about common chord progressions that we see in music. If you can remember and memorize this phone number, let's say 473-6251, you'll be in great shape. Okay, so common chord progressions. Well, first let's review a little bit. Root motion is the movement from one chord's root to another chord's root. So to demonstrate this, we will use a 1, major 1, and a minor 6 chord in C major, which we have right here. The root of the 1 chord is C. It's the C major triad. The root of the 6th chord is A, and that is the A minor triad. Therefore, the root motion between these two chords is down a third. Due to interval inversion, the root motion could also be classified as up a sixth. So let's try another example. Let's start out in C major again, but we'll start with the 4 chord, the major 4 chord. The root is F, and the root of the 2nd chord is G. Therefore, root motion of these two chords is up a 2nd or down a 7th. So hopefully this is making sense. One more example. Let's do a 1 chord in first inversion. So we have a 1-6 major, so the soprano is doubled, going to a root position 5 chord. So the root of the 1st chord is C. Since the chord is inverted, the root is not the lowest note. The root of the 2nd chord is G. So the root motion of these two chords is down a 4th or up a 5th. Now we're going to talk about circle progressions. And did you memorize that telephone number? 473-6251. Keep that in mind. So a circle progression occurs when root motion is equal to up a 4th or down a 5th. So both 1 to 4 and 2 to 5 are circle progressions. Three to 6 and 4 to 7 are also circle progressions. So we're going to work out all possible circle progressions for a major scale, starting at 1. So we have 4. 1 could really go anywhere. 1 likes to go to 4. There is a common tone. From 4, we can travel around our circle progression to 7, the next number in our telephone number for circle progressions. So we have 4, 7, and 7 can progress to 3. 4, 7, 3. From 3, we can progress to 6. 4, 7, 3, 6. 6 would go to 2. 2 loves to go to 5. And 5 loves to go to 1. And so there's our circle progression for major. We start out on the 1 chord, and we travel the circle progression 473 6251. And let's listen to what it sounds like. One more time. It's very pleasant to the ear. Okay, so that's a circle progression for major. Now let's work out all possible circle progressions for a minor scale. And to do this, we're going to do natural minor. So I'm in the key of C natural minor. And we have a lowercase 1. We'll start out on the minor 1 chord. And 1 will progress to a minor 4. So we're still traveling the same circle progression as major with the telephone number of 473 6251. From 4, we can go to 7. Note that it is major 7 because we're dealing with natural minor. It's not diminished because we're not using a harmonic minor. From 7, we can progress to the major 3 chord. So far we have 4, 7, 3. The major 3 chord can progress to the major 6 chord. The 6 chord is major in minor. From 6 we can progress to 2. Note that the 2 chord in minor is diminished. 4, 7, 3, 6, 2. 2 loves to go to 5. Okay, here we have a capital 5. We always like to end on a dominant that's major, going back to minor 1. So the minor scale circle progression is minor 1, minor 4, major 7, major 3, major 6, 2 diminished, major 5, minor 1, 4, 7, 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. And let's listen to this minor key circle progression. And one more time. And it was so nice to listen to one more time. So there's our minor scale circle progression. Okay, this is a chart that displays the circle progressions that we just saw for both major and minor scales. So if you travel clockwise around the major and the minor circle, you will have our telephone number of, after the 1 chord, 4, 7, 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. And those are great harmonic progressions. Of course, they don't all necessarily need to be in root position when you're writing or composing a harmonic progression. You can have inversions. So now, let's continue on. This is another way of looking at it. So the first diagram is major key chord progression. It looks like we're starting out on the 3 chord for major, the minor 3 chord. So if you're starting on a 3 chord, then the next number in our circle progression would be the 6. Notice we can branch off here. Okay, the darker arrow represents the circle progression and the telephone number. 4, 7, 3, 6, 2. If you take that route from the 2, you would go to the 5 and then back to the 1. Or notice that the minor 6 chord can also travel to the major 4 chord. And that's because there are some common tones there that exist, which makes for a nice harmonic progression. If you travel that way to the major 4 chord, then think of the circle progression, and from the 4 chord you can travel to the 7 diminished chord, which heads on back to 1. So 5 loves to go to 1, and so does the 7 diminished. It loves to go to 1. For our minor key chord progression in the second diagram, we're starting out on a major 7. Think of the telephone number. We travel to a major 3, over to a major 6, and then you have the option, just like the major key chord progression, of going the darker arrow route of our true circle progression. From the 6, you would go to the 2 diminished, to the 5, and then back to the minor 1. Or you could go from the major 6 to the minor 4 because of the common tones. If you do that, from the minor 4, travel along to the diminished 7th, back to 1. Okay. You also, if you look at the 2 diminished, you have an arrow that's diagonally up to the 7 diminished. So that also is a route you can take, but it's not very common. I would maybe avoid that. And best case scenario, stick with the circle progression. But keep in mind that when you get to the 6th chord, that you do have options. You can go from the 6th chord to the 4 chord, or you can go from the 6th chord to the 2 chord, like the circle progression telephone number. So the next frame is going to actually demonstrate a color-coded diagram, which might be easier for us to examine. So I call this the major key progression cheat sheet. So the first figure here is chord motion in a major key. So the 1 chord, we know, can be followed by any diatonic chord. So you can start out on 1 and you can go wherever you want. To make your harmonic progression longer, you could start out on the 1 chord, and you could even do the 1/6 chord. Before you travel to a different Roman numeral. So here in this diagram, we starting out with the minor 3. Thinking of our telephone number, we can travel to the 6, the minor 6th, and then we have the option of going to the major 4 or the minor 2. And then from there, we have the option of going to the 7 or the 5. When you get to the 5 chord, let's say, and you wanted to extend your harmonic progression before you go back to 1, you could certainly do a 5 chord, then you could do a 5/6 chord in first inversion to extend it before heading back to 1. Okay. So if you look carefully, some of these Roman numerals are color-coded. So the green represents the tonic chords. Okay, and the reason really for that is because there are common tones in the 3 chord and the 6 chord that are also found in the tonic chord. Right, so let's assume that we're in the key of C major here. C major, so our 1 chord is C, E, G. Okay, and our minor 3 chord would be E, G, B. So you see there are common tones. And the sixth chord would be A, C, E. Now the one in, I guess, yellow is the subdominant, or sometimes called predominant, because those occur, the 4 chord and the 2 chord, occur before the dominant. You know, it's a way of leading up to the dominant. And then finally we can classify the 7 as dominant, and we already know that the 5 is dominant. The 7 can be classified as dominant because it has 2 common tones, just like the 5, found in the 5 chord. So that's the major key progression cheat sheet. Hopefully you copied that down. And if we look at our minor key progression cheat sheet, okay, we're starting out on a 1, a minor 1. And remember, from there we can go anywhere. We can even do a minor 1 and then a minor 1/6 if we want to make our progression a little bit longer. From 1 we can go anywhere. So it looks as if, according to this chart, they have chosen the major 7. And think of our circle progression. We can go to a major 3, then a major 6. Those are all considered tonic. And then we have our subdominant or predominant chord, which is the minor 4 or the 2 diminished. You can take your pick once you get to a 6 chord. And then you can travel on to your dominant, which is your major 5 or your 7 diminished. And you can head back to your minor 1. So these are progressions for major and minor, and keep in mind that there are no really strict rules when it comes to chord progressions, but these progressions sound very pleasing to the ear and are found a lot in popular music. So we're going to continue on to the next frame. If you need to pause this for anything, to copy down some notes, please do so. Otherwise, let's continue on. So, when writing music, we can use chord progressions, which are the patterns that music composers use to put musical notes and chords together. So when you write music, chord progressions are critical in writing songs that sound harmonious and have the desired tones. If you look at Western harmonic music, you can see patterns emerge in the ways chord progressions are built. It is possible for any one chord to progress to any one of the other chords in a key. However, certain chord progressions are used more frequently than others. And really it's because they just sound better. These natural patterns are pleasing to listeners and composers alike, and therefore they appear in popular music, classical music, rock music, jazz music, and so on. Music theorists have taken note of those patterns and come up with a set of rules concerning chord progressions. These rules are immensely helpful in songwriting, and the following table shows common chord progressions for major and minor chords, along with the corresponding chord names for the key of C major and C minor. So let's take a look at what this chart has to say. This is common typical chord progressions for major. So we have the 1 chord, which can appear anywhere and lead anywhere. So even during the middle of a harmonic progression you're writing, you can travel back to the 1 chord. The minor 2 chord leads to 5 or 7 diminished chords. Think of 4, 7, 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. The minor 3 chord can go to the 4 chord or the 6 chord. More commonly the 6 chord, but it can certainly go to the 4 chord. The major 4 chord can go to the 7 diminished chord, the 5 chord, or the 2 chord. 5 chord can lead to the minor 6 chord and also the tonic chord. The minor 6 can lead to minor 2, minor 3, major 4, or 5 chords. So there's many options when you get to 6. And the diminished 7 leads us to the 1 chord. Or it can take us on to the 3 chord, but the 1 chord is more common. So this chart, again, is just for major, and now we'll explore the minor chart. Because minor scales offer some flexibility in the 6th and 7th notes of the scale, depending on what form of minor you're using, you have more chord possibilities to account for. For example, in a C natural minor scale, the chord built on the 7th note would be B flat major. But if you're writing in the harmonic minor scale, that 7th chord would be a B diminished chord, which we all know. So the parentheses around some of the chords in this chart indicate less commonly used chords, but they are still acceptable and they would work in the harmonic progression. So your minor 1 chord, again, just like major, can appear anywhere and lead anywhere. Your 2 diminished, or your minor 2 chord, can head on over to 5, or 7 diminished, or minor 5, or major 7, depending on what form of minor we are using. The major 3 or the augmented 3, depending on the form of minor, can head on over to the 4, the 6, or the 7 chords. The 4 chord can head on over to the 5 chord, or the 7 chord. 5 chord can head on over to the 6 chord, or back to the 1 chord, which is also very common. The 6 chord can head on over to 3, or 4, 5, 7. Again, lots of options when you are dealing with the 6 chord as to where to go to next. And the 7 diminished, or the 7 major, can head back to the 1 chord. Or you can continue your harmonic progression to extend it by going to the 3 chord. So we're going to continue now, so if you need to pause this to copy down some things, please do so. Otherwise, let's keep going. So some of the most common chord progressions in popular music is what I have here in red. Major 1, major 4, major 5, 1. Listen to that again. Second one, we have a major 1 going to a minor 2, to a major 5, to a major 1. Minor 1 to minor 4 to major 5 to minor 1. Like everything in music and art in general, you are the creator of your work, and you can decide whether you want to follow the rules or try something completely different. Just for fun, try playing or just listening to some chord progressions to get a feel of how easy it can be to build a great song, or at least a halfway decent pop song. So listen to the 1-5-1 in the key of G major. Hopefully you heard the bass go do, sol, do. Listen to the 1-2-5-1-3-5-7 diminished 1. I'm going to be in the key of C major here. Listen again. Moving right along, you can design your own chord progressions. This is a great website I found called AutoCoursecom. So if we click on this, we can see that it tells you how to write chord progressions. You can pick the instrument that you'd like to hear, whether it be guitar or piano. Let's leave it on guitar for now, that would be nice. Okay, and you can pick the key that you want. And you can also pick if you want it to be major or minor. It looks like they're giving us an option of C, D, E, F, G, A, or B, major or minor. So here's our main progression. So that's the C chord, the G chord, the A minor chord, and the F major chord. That would be in the key of C, Roman numerals 1, 5, 6, 4. Alternatives. That's 6, 3, 4, 2. That's 5, 2, 3, 1. That's 4, 1, 2, and then interesting, flat 7. Okay, so AutoCoursecom, great website. You can check it out, and also it would be really good as far as ear training goes to get a sense of chord progressions that you like, because we're going to be writing our very own harmonic chord progressions in the near future. All right, so just a quick recap. You should be able to, at this point, provide Roman numerals for triads and seventh chords for any key in major or minor. You should know what your primary triads are and your secondary triads. You should know some typical opening and closing chord progressions. And you should be able to tell me which primary triads relate to which secondary triads based on common tones and things like that. And looks like that's a wrap. So thanks for watching. Hopefully you learned some information today on chord progressions. Have a great day, AP.